Well, time flies when we're having fun. Welcome. We're back. We're back. We're back. The Hospitality Tech Show is back for another season of the 2026. My name is Michael Woodson. Sue, my host, is joining us. Sue is going to be joining us, and we have an incredible guest today. And there she goes.
We're
Sue,
gonna
how
have a
are
great
you today?
time. We're gonna have a great time today.
Let me just say that for our sponsors and thank you and thank them. Our sponsors this year have been great. From last year, same ones have hung in there and they believe in this wonderful show. I'll just say that the workforce Montgomery of Montgomery County, they have been very generous to us. Mike Bergeron, he's the CEO. He's the CEO of Integrity Restaurant Group. Bob Falcon, Integrity Restaurant Group, and of course Danny Barnett from IBM. We want to thank them for their support, and thank you. But tonight we have an excellent guest, and so I'm going to turn it over for the introduction to Sue. So Sue, why don't you go with that?
All right. Well, I'm going to have David do an introduction, but I am introducing myself. I'm Sue Graves, co-host with Michael Whitson, and I am CEO of Experience Alive, bringing solutions to the hospitality industry. And David is bringing an awesome solution to the hospitality industry and has been doing so for quite some time. David, tell us about yourself.
Great. Thanks, Sue. Thanks, Michael. I appreciate the opportunity to spend the evening with you. Again, my name is Dave Durka. I'm the CEO of Security Validation, SecVal MSSP. We're a managed security and data privacy and advisory firm, and we specialize on hospitality. We've been doing it for a very long time, partnering with hotels all over the world. And again, I'm looking forward to tonight's conversation.
Well, we are as well. This is a hot topic right now. David, we've been talking about PCI compliance, it seems like, for a long time. And tell me about where you think PCI compliance is now, what it is, what the importance is, and we'll move into AI a little bit later. But for now, let's talk about the basics of PCI compliance. What are your thoughts there? Are people getting on board?
They're trying a little more now. We've seen in the last year, 18 months. And there's a reason behind that, right? For the first time in over 21 years, we're actually starting to see enforcement. And that enforcement's coming in the way of fines and penalties being levied by the card brands. So while over the last 20 years, us as a QSA, Qualified Security Assessor company, has been selling this prospect of fines are coming, here we are 20 years later and the fines are here and they're pretty significant. Hospitality is challenged, as you and I spoke about earlier.
Yeah. So, are people getting fined? We're talking about it, but is it really happening from the card companies?
Yeah. So really leading the charge is American Express. They're pulling no punches now. They're levying fines. They're working with their merchants, but the tolerance for non-compliance has gone away. And there's a reason why they're in a position to enforce a little more stringently than, let's say, a Visa or a MasterCard. But yeah, we're now, for the last 6 months, we've seen the fines being levied.
What are the top 2 or 3 things that people are getting fined for? Is it basic stuff, or is it something a little bit more complicated where they need help fixing it? What does it look like?
Yeah, unfortunately, or fortunately, PCI is an all-in-one. So you either are or you're not, right? So depending on what kind of hotel you're running and the technologies you use, you could range between 167 controls up to 390 controls. And they must all be in place in order for you to be compliant. So they range, they're technical controls, administrative controls.
It sounds like an audit ready to take place everywhere.
Annually, right? And
yeah.
They have to take place, and that's really when they fall flat, right? And that leads to a whole host of other issues. PCI allows many hotels, to self-assess. So, there's a gray line there on, are you assessing properly and the full intent and nature of the controls?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure that that's all built into place to prevent breaches, which you and I talked about previously as well. Let's talk about security breach. What's the cost, the average cost of security breaches for hotels these days?
They are astronomical. Um, if we look at 100, just say 100 cards were breached, right? That alone can carry fines and penalties of $100,000 per event. Plus, you have the remediation. So in the past, we were only concerned on protecting the credit card data. But now with PII, personally identifiable information,
Yep.
GDPR implications, those costs, forensic audit costs, legal costs, they could run $250,000 per record. And it's not uncommon to see a mid-size full service property running $3 to $5 million in total costs.
Well, does that even include the downtime they have for their facility?
It doesn't, right? No. So the loss of revenue is not even calculated in that.
That's a lot of money for not having compliance. But with AI in play now, I mean, do you see that breaches are going to potentially increase? I mean, AI can mimic your voice. It can, hop on a Teams meeting and have people give their passwords. I mean, how are we supposed to get this under control?
It's crazy because as a tech enthusiast, I love what's happening with AI. As a data security professional, I am wildly fearful of what's happening with AI.
So you should. And so
Yeah.
you should, Dave.
We're
Data. Garbage in, garbage out, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we're seeing so many vendors, new vendors, cutting edge, bleeding edge technology being introduced based on AI.
Yep.
And we have no understanding of what foundational data security foundation they have in place. No guard. What are the guardrails they have in place?
And that's important to put that in place. And this is where third-party risk management comes in and takes a different play. Beyond that, the dependencies are relevant. And you're right. You have to go out and you're going to have to, there's fourth, fifth, and sixth dimensions of the third party. Thus being that the importance of the supply chain related to your technology stack. The dependency itself has now come, relevant. And this is where, the hotel industry and the hospitality industry is going to struggle because they're always looking only on-prem. They just got into a cloud environment, and now you're asking them to look beyond that. And so, things like APIs. Now we add AI into mix. We need to put some governance. We need to put some guardrails because you need to build in trust. But before across, that you got to make sure your people, process, technologies, your data management, your data classification. Do you know where your data? Do you know where your data is being sent out, and also what data is coming in? So this is an industry that has just evolved very rapidly with no rails.
Yeah.
So how do you build the governance when you're just getting into the cloud right now, and you're getting into the cloud, but AI is also there? Like you're doing both. Some are doing both right now.
They are.
How do you build governance around that? And how do you get it to the hourly level?
Well, good question. And so, Dave, you're out in the trenches. You see it. I've been there. I'm there leading on AI governance. But let's hear your opinion on that. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah.
Yeah. The challenge is the way that fundamentally hospitality is built, right? Whether you're a soft brand that's putting a governance program into place, that's great. But as we spoke earlier, when there are elements of franchise versus corporate-owned locations, you can't always enforce that on a franchisee. In a larger model where hospitality management companies, they may have little or no technology built into their HMAs, their hotel management agreements. So the owner, an operator of the property, is kind of left to their own devices. And quite honestly, the associates are driving the technology. The guests are driving the technology,
Mm-hmm.
irrespective of the risks that it's introducing.
But again, risk is like, the business owns the risk, and they're willing to take it. They're going to take it.
Right.
However, they're kicking the can down the road, as they say, right?
Yeah.
And so, some interesting trends that I have pulled together is that, taking, like, it says here, key themes: tech and AI dominate innovation, driving both back-end efficiency and great, and guest personalization. That's a
Yeah.
trend. And since we're talking about tech, the other thing that's happening in the industry is post-pandemic recovery has shifted to growth and optimization, not just rebounding, right? And the next thing, consumer habits, you know, leisure travel, off-premise dining, experimental stays are central to the strategic planning. And then the last thing, issue that we're facing is, of course, the labor cost, and distribution strategies will shape competitive advantage in 2026. Those trends are there, but the AI component, as you can see, driving innovation. The issue that you've mentioned is about the data, right? And that kind of raised your eyebrow. So on that left eyebrow going, So why don't
Yep.
you expand on that? Were you concerned about the data with AI LLMs?
Sure. So just before we get into the specifics, if we look 2, 3 weeks back, right, the head of the US government, the CISA, Cybersecurity Infrastructure Agency, uploaded sensitive classified data to an LLM model, to an AI model that was public.
Wow.
That now, and here is somebody that is running or instrumental in the government's AI strategy and cybersecurity strategy, and yet made the mistake of loading it or
Mm.
uploading it. We're seeing now AI in housekeeping. So now guest information, guest preferences, names, family information being loaded to the models.
Mm.
You would hope that all of these are closed models, only used by
Those.
the hotel or the group of hotels or the application owner themselves. It's more likely it's going to the application owner, and then we're all dependent upon the best practices of that application owner. And as I said, maybe they're developing that application in their garage, right? There's no structure, no governance around it. And
Hmm.
we're being very trustworthy with very sensitive data.
Right, and
The
that's
days
the
of,
definition.
I'm sorry, a credit card, right? You lose your credit card, a credit card's breached, big deal, right? You call your bank, they issue you a new credit card. All of this other PII that's being uploaded to these models, that's lifelong data. You're not getting away from that data.
Mm.
So how do you build governance around that then? I mean, that's the ultimate question is how do you build governance around it? How do you educate very quickly because we're already in it? Most hourly employees are using ChatGPT or Claude or other on their phone. We could even talk from a business standpoint, Microsoft Copilot. I mean, employees are being encouraged to use Copilot. So in the business format. So let's talk about that. Like that's directly into business. So let's talk about that.
Yeah. So I think Microsoft has done a great job of coming to the party first with the ability to put a governance framework in place. Right? You as an administrator, you can control to an extent what your user community does with it. The shortcoming there goes back to the hospitality model. You don't have one centralized organization managing that Microsoft infrastructure and employing those controls across your hotel base. So, right idea, but again, faulty when it comes to hospitality. It just doesn't fit the model today. And Michael brought up a great point earlier. At some point, the leadership of the hotels, whether it be the management companies, the brands themselves, need to step up and draw that line in the sand.
But they're going to have to take ownership of this, right? They're going to have to own it. And so, and this is where, people are afraid about, I call this the hot potato, accountability. Oh, I don't want to own it. I don't want to own the risk. I mean, everyone's passing it around. But somebody has to be a risk owner, right?
Yeah.
Someone has to lead it, own it, and be responsible if things go south. In order to do so, crawl, walk, run implementation is necessary for implementing artificial intelligence into the world, retraining the workforce, east, west, north, south of the organization, even at the board level, because the board also have to take some ownership of this as well.
Yeah.
Very good point. And we see the struggle just with basic cybersecurity training and awareness, how hotels struggle to get their associates to take PCI mandated basic training. What is the expectation that we will get them to take training, extended training in AI, the do's and the don'ts? I think that is a further challenge.
Well, that challenge is, this is where micro learning comes in. I hate to say it, people have attention deficit disorder. You can't get them to watch something. And you have to kind of adopt how they scroll, even like concepts like on TikTok, etc. So go to where they're at, figure out how do they learn? And you're going to have to address it that way, because not everybody learns the same way. But you need to set the tone of how we're going to do that. Gone are the days of that long training course. Painful it was when we had to do that PCI training, right? Painful. You have to sit there. And compliance, right? But however, if you do a little bit at a time, I think you'll achieve your outcome. And I think that that's modern teaching, right? And for where we are today with the social networks, if you can mimic how they use social network and push your training out that way, you'll be successful.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, it's gonna have to be short bites, right?
Right, little tidbits. I mean, along the way, it's because I know every year the PCI training comes up 4.0. You're right, the 4.1, the enforcement now, the fines are there, and they have to get their act together. Here we are, 2026. So they've had 24, 25. Let's get those controls in place, right? However, what we're seeing now is a change in how people perceive information, how they receive it, and then never mind retain it, right? So you can receive it, but they might not retain it, right? And that's where that boring take that course comes in, like, oh God, painfully. So
it doesn't help that hospitality by nature is so transient. So that training program has to be mature enough to make sure that the inflow of new associates are receiving the same level of training.
And it has to be agile with languages, right? Because we have a labor diversity here, right? So you have to be able to cater to that. So very important. So, but I'd say the AI in the technology. So other thing is about innovation in the guest experience, which I want to go in that direction. And we know AI is there too. I expect it. But what are you seeing from the challenges they face with innovating technologies? We've already got the keyless entry. We're attacking the front desk now, giving you a choice, check-in by kiosk and all that. Skip the desk, go right to your room. Tell me, what are you seeing?
Yeah. So just as you said, right, we're seeing a lot of that. And I believe that there is already a backlash, right? Hospitality is that one-on-one connection. And as we move too much away, or as hoteliers in the pursuit of cheaper labor cost or just overall optimization of OpEx, that offends a lot of guests. However, where we're seeing it is in-room services, being able to order food or drink through a bot. Right? Because the perception there is I'm not sitting on a phone that's ringing, waiting for the restaurant to pick up. I want more towels. I want when I check in, I want AI to know that I like 7 towels, 5 washcloths, and 3 bars of soap. That no
Mm-hmm.
matter where I go in the chain, that I'm going to have that delivered to my room. So those kind of amenities I see people leaning into, guests leaning into. The more the beginning of the process, I believe there will be pushback.
What about robots? See the robot at your door. I mean, scary, right? You know, you room service if you're in full
It's there
service.
now.
It's there now, but
There now.
I know it's a concept. When I first experienced, it was just kind of odd, you know. But it's there, and yeah. Any thoughts on that? What do you see?
Yeah, I think there needs to be some improvement to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've seen a couple of our clients, 2025, that piloted it. I don't think I think the guest would prefer to be served by a robot, than a human being.
Wow, really?
Yeah,
Well,
there's
it
that.
depends. Now, let me. I have to challenge you on this, my friend. All right. So, Mrs.
Room
Jones,
service you're talking about, though, David.
Mrs. Jones, who's gone to this hotel for years, and they decide to change. But Mrs. Jones is a traditionalist in terms of and Gen Z, but she's a traditionalist, older seasoned woman. And you're going to send a robot to Mrs. Jones's room? Your tea, ma'am. Here you get it. Boom. But it's a robot. Do you think she can relate to that?
No, she can't. But the first part of the AI, knowing what her habits are, knowing what her preferences are,
Mm,
the hotel will learn never send a bot to Mrs. Jones. She requires the human interaction. And I think
mm.
that's where you're going to see a lot of value of AI playing in that guest experience.
So customizing your experience,
Exactly. And it
asking,
makes you
getting
more
that.
valuable as a brand, right?
Mm, right. So one time you're really building a kind of a pre LLM for Mrs. Jones because in learning her habits, what she likes to do, all the way down to the restaurant and the F&B landscape. Right. You just want to be able to just and Mrs. Jones, we got you. It's going to be a great
Exactly.
experience at that hotel. You don't have to worry about a thing. Oh, okay.
I know you're a vegan. I know you like white chocolate. You could go through and run the gamut and create a profile for
Yep.
Mrs. Jones,
Oh,
exactly
Yep.
like
okay.
we laid out.
All good. So speaking of F&B landscape, what do you think? Restaurants, point of sale, what do you got? What's your thought on that?
Yeah, right. It's right from the technology through the delivery. We're seeing a highly watered down, moving from the conventional uh, sit down restaurant to more the bistro grab and go.
Mm-hmm.
It's more efficient. There's less waste. It's more profitable. Um, the technology there, right? There's a couple companies that are making great headway using P2PE, point to point encryption technology, which limits the exposure of credit card loss. Um, Again, all that data being kept in the cloud, both the guest preference data as well as the cardholder data.
Mm-hmm.
But we are seeing a trend that hotels are minimizing, if you will, their F&B footprint.
Mm. Is there a reason behind? And so you can take this one, but is there a reason behind that? They're using like the toast and all. I mean, what's going on here?
Yeah, I think it's all cost driven,
Mm.
right? I think everything they're doing is cost in mind first, not necessarily the long-term effects on that property. But
Mm.
yeah, it's definitely Toast came in, great example, with a great offering at a great price point, P2PE in some cases. So yeah, I think that's what's driving that. Easy
Interesting.
implementation, right? It's a quick to implement technology.
Trying to find creative ways to monitor or monitor food costs, right? Food costs are
Yeah.
on the rise. We all know that from just going grocery shopping ourselves. Now imagine doing that for a restaurant. So, they've got to get the food costs under control, and food waste is another big problem, right? So,
Sure.
banquets and whatnot, how much food waste is
Mm.
is there? So whatever they can do to control it is what they're doing. Do you feel like, David, like that we're in a position to get ROI on some of these AI models, depending on where they're using them? What are your thoughts on an ROI for AI right now in hospitality?
Yeah, for if we stay with housekeeping and the back of house, I think there's a tremendous amount um, of ROI there, right? If
Mhm.
I can talk into my pad in in my room and say I want towels, I only need really one or a small handful of people to run around and make these deliveries, right? They don't have to be union folks. They don't have to be high paid
Mhm.
folks. They're just ushering the guest request to their room. I
Mhm.
think there is a both tangible and intangible ROI. You're delivering to the client quicker, so that makes to the guest, that makes the guest happier. You're more responsive. Yeah, I do think you'll be able to measure. And then plus, let's talk about the part AI plays in rate optimization,
Yep.
right?
Mhm.
We're seeing that, right? We're seeing that across the board. Instacart, just a little bit of a departure, right? Just got dinged for rate optimization. Uh, and
Yeah.
hotels have been doing that for parking and for room rates for the longest time, but now they're even that more efficient with AI.
Yeah, you just don't want a tomato costing $1.50 one day and 50 cents the next day.
Well, it's kind of
Agreed.
hard to gauge that though because of the tariffs, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
Yep,
everything, right? Supply. So depending on where you source it from, you know, you
this
get
is
what you pay
true.
for. You got to adjust it. So let's talk about the distribution and booking behaviors. The online booking, all right? The OTAs and what's going on with that. We're seeing a change, and I thought earlier we talked about AI, and I tried to get away from it, but as you can see, AI touches everything, right?
It does.
Certainly in this world on the OTAs. What's your thoughts on that issue?
Yeah, so OTAs are, and I think they're a necessary evil, and I think everybody looks at them
Hmm.
that way. Um, as a result of that, um, they play more of that again, that rate optimization role
Hmm.
than anything. I don't know exactly where they could do any better or any worse with AI, with the inclusion of AI. So for me, the jury's still out on, on how they will benefit or how the properties will benefit from the AI integration with them.
Hmm. And I think at the franchise level, there might be some resistance. You think?
I do, right? Um, they're a little more funny you should mention that. As the franchise or level, we're now seeing more and more focus on data security, where years ago they ran from it. We're
Yeah.
seeing it more. And now, even in their audits of franchisees, we're seeing AI questions show up on the brand audits.
Interesting. Questions whether or not what should we do, or questions of
Yeah.
what?
What kind of questions?
What kind of questions?
Are
Right.
you using it? How are you using it? And
Mm-hmm.
then really wanting the details of, are you using it for sales and banquets? Are you using it for
Mm-hmm.
contract creation, which right now
Mm.
is probably the most prolific, people using it for quick contract creation. But yeah, for the first time, we participated in a couple across two brands that those questions were part of the brand audit.
Oh, wow. It's kind of interesting that is, that's scary when they say, I'm using AI to do a contract.
Right?
Hmm.
Yeah, because that's all out there. That's all public.
However, now what if that contract has an issue? Who made the contract? Who's at
Right.
fault here? All right. There's some issues here, right? Legal issues, right? Because if I didn't do it, ChatGDP did it, or Copilot created it, but Copilot created wrong. So the process of governance has to go to legal, right? And legal has to should sign off on all contracts before it goes to them, because they are going to have to be ultimately responsible for that in generating that contract. And of course, there's contract-driven platforms coming online that are embedding AI into it. And one of the things that it's allowing you to do is to develop your own LLM and put your own language in there. So it's a closed in as opposed to an open AI environment. And that gives you that ability to stand up legally because it's in your LLM and that you're managing. And if you can show that you've put the right rails in place, then it should pass muster. But again, legal issues to come. You never know. I can't speak for the franchise or the smaller hotels, but
go ahead.
The large ones I'm certainly doing. Go ahead.
Do you work with any Accor properties, David?
No. I'm sorry. Yes, we have two. We have two, actually. Yeah. Accor does a great job of self-managing IT and security.
Well, I don't know if they're the first, but I think they are the first brand to put their model into ChatGPT. So that's pretty exciting. I was kind of disappointed that Walmart and Spotify beat everybody to it, but Accor has stepped up. So now you can actually make your reservations through ChatGPT. They'll be the first ones to show up in ChatGPT. But let's talk about the security of that. Like, what does that look like when you build a model that can work in ChatGPT? Help me understand that, help the audience understand that. Because although I want to applaud Accor, I'm like, okay, what are the risks of doing that? Are there risks? I don't know.
Yeah, I think currently the biggest risk is the unknown. This is nascent. This is brand new technology.
Yeah.
We don't know how the bad people, the bad actors,
the nefarious activity that's going to come from all this.
Well, there's a couple of things here. I mean, I don't know, AI today, quantum tomorrow, right? Now, one of the issues that today what's going on is that, as you know, the hacker community has been very quiet. They're harvesting the data. They're just getting it. And when quantum comes, they're going to unlock it.
Sure.
All right. So, the convenience, then everybody go ahead, put all that data in that open source. Someone can say, well, it's encrypted. Well, okay. But tomorrow when quantum comes,
it'll unencrypt it.
They're going to unencrypt it fast. And that data leakage of tomorrow, of the data that they collected, because they're data archiving right now. Just gathering the data, snatching it. And so you got to put rails around your data. Because data management, and as you had said, alluded to earlier, oh my God, I'm concerned about data management because we never really got it right. You got to say, it's a mess, and there's only so much lipstick you can put on the pig in data management. And some people don't have a data classification scheme. Some people don't have anything to do with data. They don't even have data governance, and now you want them to put AI governance. Lions and tigers and bears. Oh my!
I don't know how you're supposed to stay ahead of this because you're absolutely right, Michael. I mean, quantum computing is out there already. They're building computers that are quantum enabled right now. So, I mean, these are home computers that are quantum enabled.
Right.
So, if you've got this from a home standpoint, commercially, it's out there already. So, you talk about nefarious activity. How are you supposed to prevent this? How do you stay ahead of the game here? I mean, you're a company that, professes, data governance and security. And so how does your company or companies like yours stay ahead of the game here to help protect and lead, right, organizations into a safe place?
Right. So identification, the continual identification, education of the threats. At the end of the day, we serve at the pleasure of our client and they serve at the pleasure of the property. Mm-hmm. But it's the continual identification of these potential threats, giving them the context of what that threat could lead to in a worst case scenario, and just continue to sound the alarm so that we would hope at one point they will look to put the right governance in place, stop the traffic completely at the firewall, or make some meaningful effort to protect the guest data and their own data for that matter, right? We're now no longer talking about
Mm.
risking guest data alone, but
Right.
it's also the IP of the organization that's potentially at risk.
And this is
Yes.
where visibility is going to come in. All right, you have platforms, tools that are coming on that really are designed to help the end user understand what type of data is being put in here and asking you. And that sometimes the individual, the organization can also regulate it from a governance by not allowing it. You mentioned PII information. For your own health care, it's going to be the HII, right? So we have to begin to policing that. And this is where privacy meets AI, governance meets AI, because we have to get to a level of trust. And that was, we know it's always going to be human in the loop. That you just can't get rid of that. It's not going to happen. And people are concerned that, well, can we let, what if we have an AI enabled hotel? Not going to happen. You know, with a voice. I mean, you walk in, nobody's at the front desk. All right. And some voice comes in, welcome to Hotel X, right? And you just say what you want to do, and it tells you your room is available. You are now on room number 151. All right. Okay. All right. And they know you. By the way, the scary thing, and I'm going to say, for those that like fast food, I don't, but I went to Wendy's the other day. They're using AI to order my food.
Mhm.
Unbelievable. Like, whoa, scary, right?
Yeah.
So, into labor replacement. Now, the shift that we're seeing, outside by those separate industry, you're seeing Amazon, and now, consolidating. Robots are coming in using AI. So that marriage between Amazon and UPS, now they're laying off a layer of people gone. So we're seeing a shift. So, but now let's talk about this, right? When we although, and I want to just, for a minute, pause for a minute before we go on, because we've been talking and it's been a great conversation. But, let's keep building that bridge between hospitality and, technology. And to our guests out and people who are listening, if you do have a question, drop it in the chat. And also, just please remember, follow us on Facebook. We're out there. We're on LinkedIn. YouTube is there. But again, LinkedIn and Facebook is where we hang out. Feel free to just drop us a line, website, et cetera, et cetera. So let's talk about the whole ecosystem of travel, hotel hospitality, the FM, the restaurants. But what about the partners? What about the third, the partners that give into that experience of whether you're coming to a resort? What about that? What about how do you manage? How do you see in that? Are hotels, paying attention to that? Because their data is also going to be exported to them, right? They are. What's your thought on that?
Yeah. From our portfolio of companies that we manage or partner with, there is no focus on what third party partners are doing.
Mm,
There is no, when we come, as we go down the list of controls in PCI, and PCI is pretty explicit when it talks about due diligence with third party vendors or partners. There is no work done. Now, is that because they don't want to poke the bear
mm,
and potentially have to say this partner, no matter how bad the business wants it, is not fit?
mm,
Or are they not equipped at this point to do a suitable evaluation of that partner?
mm.
One would think with all of if we look at the major risks or the major breaches over the last couple of years, and
Yeah.
Michael, you've alluded to this multiple times on this call, it's supply chain.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
We're opening ourselves up again to supply chain risk.
Yes. We're there. No matter what industry it's, I'm seeing it across multiple industries. And hospitality is also going to get in there because you have to worry about counterfeit. There's a lot of variables that are going to come in. to play here as the hospitality, their suppliers, their food. It's just, and of course, thanks to terrorists, that's another story in itself. But I would just say to you, we're challenged on the supply chain today, and you have to stop managing that. And with the TPRM, Microsoft had a program called Dis the Audit. It's something they would go out, making sure and you're gonna have to go back to that. Go out and see that supplier. You've alluded to that. How do you know that developing that software or doing something in the garage, right? So you're going to have to visually go out constantly, far more than you had to before to do the checks and balances. Instead, you don't want to be doing the switcheroo. Yeah. Other things. Now, for students who are coming into this industry, what is your best bet? What is your recommendation that you say, hey, if you were a student coming into hospitality today, you're a sophomore, you're a junior, even a freshman coming in. But what about that senior graduating? What's your thought on that here in 2026? We're in February. Before you know it, March and May, April, May will be here. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, right, still hospitality from an associate standpoint is kind of bifurcated, right? Do
Mm-hmm.
you really have that bent, that desire to be guest facing, guest pleasing, the true hospitality spirit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's great, right? The concierge role, which matches AI in a lot of respects, and using AI to meet the needs of a guest, um, or the technology side, right? With the inclusion of AI and a lot of these new technologies, there are a lot of really cool technical positions, right? Hotel IT is no longer mundane.
Mm-hmm.
Break fix a printer, right? You're becoming exposed to a lot of great technology. So I think for new graduates, it's really widened the opportunities, the channels of opportunity within hospitality.
Mm. Do you see an expansion on the types of roles, your new roles being generated in the hospitality industry that weren't there before because of this integration of new technology innovation?
I think that yes, I do, but I think it'll be a step above the property, right? It'll either be the independent management companies and then looking to integrate, recommend, or manage these technologies across a portfolio of properties, different brands, different sizes. Um, I think there are a lot of opportunities within the brands for these technology skills will exist. Um, yeah, I do believe there are probably more great opportunities for new graduates in
Mm.
hospitality than there's been in a very long time.
Right. So modern times requires modern applicability, but new,
Yeah.
and we're in those times of that. Well, we've got about 10 minutes on, actually 10 minutes left, less than that actually. But the point being is that so you have anything you want to add? You want to throw
Well,
that?
I kind of wanted to. I wasn't completely. I'm never done with the AI discussion, right, you guys? But one of the ways that we talked about in our pre-call to protect protect your information is your browser. So let's talk about browsers
Mm.
and the safety of getting the right browser and what that looks like.
That's actually a good question. And this is really touch bases on privacy, etc. Speaking of that, that's the technical problem I had. Oh, the browser.
With your browser. I had that same problem.
All right.
But David, what does that look like from a browser standpoint from a protection?
Yep, I think you have to take a step up, right? What is the governance plan? Because in the
Mm.
case of Copilot, if your governance is we're going to control Copilot, well, now you're using Edge, right? There is
Right.
no ifs,
Mm.
ands, or buts. Um, if you're, I always find associates to be smart when they need to be, extraordinarily smart,
Mm.
right? We can lock down AI on the browser level, but they'll go out and they'll download Blaze browser, which has embedded AI in it,
Right.
right? So
Good.
I think
Mhm.
to answer your question, so I think the governance has to come in place. Pick a model we're going to allow to be used, and then match your browser that best fits that governance and technology.
Awesome. Yeah.
But one of the things is that browser, as I mentioned, I had a little problem with it earlier. But now everything's going to the browser level to control things.
Yeah.
And this is things like island. Try to stay vendor agnostic. But those types of methodologies are being put at the browser so you can control even how you control access control at the browser level. And you're going to have to put in it's a form of a rail, right? To try to do whatever you can to control the AI information, that shouldn't be in there, so you can have a healthy, environment inside. And this is the things where those new roles coming in, as I teach and I tell students, you've got to prepare yourself, upskill, do what you have to do, think outside the box, and take your skill set that's relevant as you come into the industry. And this is where relevancy has to be applicable so that they can be employable. And that's why I ask about the new roles that are coming into the hotel industry that weren't necessarily there. With that said, let's go over to the issue of the franchises. And then this is the wild wild west. Okay, I'm going to call it that. You know,
Yeah.
and a lot of them think that they could do whatever they want. They don't have to complain. No, we're not paying for that. And that's scary.
Yeah.
All right, if you're saying I want to be that modern hotel, I want to be associated with that brand, that's innovation. You're saying one thing, but I got Mrs. Jones here, and I like Mrs. Jones, who owns the hotel. She's a franchise owner, and she doesn't want to buy the latest and greatest. What are you going to say about that?
Yeah, it's a
Fine.
challenge we see every day.
Mm,
And Mrs. Jones will not buy that protection or that product or that level of service.
mm.
Mrs. Jones will roll the dice
And take
until
the risk.
Until she gets
exactly.
breached.
But
Until
Yep.
here,
she gets
but
breached.
here's the issue. When you go into say for example a hotel chain with Hotel X, big sign of whether it be Marriott, Hospitality, or Hilton, or one of the big ones, and that little sign, managed by Mrs. Jones. They don't see that.
Yeah.
Right.
They don't see that. They see the big sign, Hilton. Now, wouldn't you think that if Mrs. Jones did not make those investments, wouldn't you think there would be some liability to Mrs. Jones if the breach hurt the reputation of the Hiltons or the Marriott?
Yep.
Because Mrs. Jones is not there in the equation now yet. Managed by
Right.
Mrs. Jones LLC, right? What's your thought on that as we close out?
Yeah. Doesn't that go both ways, right? If the breach
Absolutely.
is on the brand side and
Mm-hmm.
Mrs. Jones's business is hurt.
Hmm.
There for years, and I came out of the brands back in um, early 2000s. I was with at the time the largest franchisor of hotels. There is such a air gap between
Mm,
level of responsibility that prevents that collaboration
mm,
between
yeah.
franchise and franchisor. And it still exists. I am seeing one brand doing a phenomenal job of, for the first time, trying to bridge that gap jointly.
Mm.
And yet another brand that came in at almost zero cost and implementing new technologies
Mm-hmm.
that will hopefully prevent bad actors and bad activities. So that will be the shift, I think, Michael, when we
Mm.
get that collaboration between the brand um, and the franchisee. The
Well,
risk
one of the
will
things that's
always
shifted though, the shift has been OpEx versus CapEx, and now that we've gone out of that
always.
CapEx model over to that OpEx model, services versus that capitalization. It's like it's hard for them to eat the cost. And I think that more and more are offering that kind of the bronze, gold, silver package, right? And trying to minimize that cost. But security is something you just can't no longer play for. Governance is something you no longer. And with AI, it's going to be expected. Just like someone and this, it's expected. So Mrs. Jones has got to say, well, I'm a traditional about me. You may have to, because else you're going to lose customers. All right, to be competitive, and it's just, yeah. Any last words for anyone? Anyone want to throw in, and that goes to the audience as well. If you do have a quick question, we can fit you in. So if you have a question, please drop your questions in the chat for our guest speaker. And tonight, you've been listening to, we've had David here, and he's just been an incredible guy. David, has been a great conversation, by the way.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. David Durka is a really, he's a CTO. He's a security violations. He's a technology executive who really has his pulse on hospitality. And we appreciate you joining us here at the Hospitality Tech Show, where we try to bridge technology with hospitality and for our students. But any last words for you?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Hallucination. That's the key word with AI.
Yeah.
We talked, and I'll make this quick, I promise, but we talked
No, take
about
it down. We got more time on it. So don't. Go ahead.
contracts, right? There was a case where a lawyer had AI, ChatGPT, build the brief. It cited case law. It cited multiple articles of case law that never ever existed.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember that.
Right.
Yeah.
And that.
So when we're, I'm sorry,
go ahead.
Michael, go ahead. No.
No, go ahead. It's scary.
So when we're dealing with with guests and those interactions, we have to be very careful that hallucination doesn't take place and we don't alienate those guests inadvertently.
Yeah, because you're going to lose a guest, right?
Yeah.
And so you always want the guest to come back, repeat business, loyalty. You want that, and it's constant. That means a lot. So when we know that whatever we're doing, our guests are going to really a repeat business. They're going to recommend this to a family member, a fellow. If it's business travel, hey, I stayed at this hotel. You might want to check them out. Great experience, and it's all about that. So, you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I just think back to, I'm going to age myself here, but I think back to the bucket checks and the registration cards and all that great stuff where we used to, handwrite all the credit card information. And it's like, fast forward, you're still protecting data that hasn't gone away, right? So as much as we'd like to think, hey, the roadside, hotel where you had the bucket checks and the reg cards that you had to worry about.
The carbon paper, right?
The carbon paper, three-part carbon paper.
Yeah.
You're fast forwarding and you're like, yeah, it's maximized. The impact is maximized to the greatest extent because of AI. So we've always had to watch these things, but it's gotten so big now and such a risk that just got to keep governance in mind.
You know what the key there is? You know what's key there, Sue? We're seeing it's pushing the risk to somebody else. It's not eliminating the risk, right? So the reg cards and all the PMS information.
Yeah.
Well, what do? We're going to push it to the cloud and make it Oracle's problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So you can transfer in the risk. Huh?
We're not improving the security posture. We're transferring risk.
Wow. Well, look, we're coming.
Well, that's going to have to be for another conversation.
Yeah, it is. Transferring the risk in the whole hospitality industry. That's a good one. Well, tonight we've been here, AI in hospitality. It's already here. How do hotels protect guest data without slowing down operations? And we're adjusting, tiptoeing through the tulips, as we get better with our guest experience. We've had tonight David Durka, and he's the Chief Executive Officer, CEO, and Chief Compliance Officer, Security Validations LLC. We thank you, David, I
Yes.
appreciate
Michael, it was
you
a
so
pleasure.
Thank you
much.
so much.
And absolutely, we'd love to have you come back. All right.
I'm
Can
a
we get
big
to
fan
nod?
of this show. Um, so I would love it, and it was a
Okay.
pleasure being invited.
All right. And so, thank you, Sue. Sue Graves, my wonderful, wonderful co-host. It's been a pleasure. And to our guests, welcome back for the 2026 season of the Hospitality Technology Show. My name is Michael Woodson, and it has been great. Until next time, join us here at the same time. We will see you soon, and we look forward to it. Thank you all. Good
Thank
night.
you.